Well, it's good to be back with you all. I say that because, of course, our household's been out for a minute. Grateful for everybody's prayers. The flu has not been kind this season, and unfortunately, we could not stay away from it this time. And so it just came home with the boys and just blew through the whole family. And 1 week, it was one day after another. Fever. So I was, boo, got you. So that was 2 weeks ago. So this past week, we've been getting much better. The kids are doing a lot better. Rebecca is full nose, a lot of sinus pressure, gives her the headaches. And then for me, I still have a bit of a lingering cough. I'm feeling much better, but I do have a bit of a lingering cough. So you'll appreciate you bearing with me as I may have an occasional coughing fit. I have lozenges and I have water with me, but if I ever have a tickle, just give me a second to launch my face off of my head, and then I might get back. I should be good. So, but that's been a little less frequent as in the past few days. So hopefully it won't be too bad today, but appreciate you guys' prayers, appreciate you bearing with me. We're going to continue our James class this morning. I'm very grateful for Scott covering for me last time while we were out sick. I know I went and watched that. I thought that went very well, and so I'm grateful for him doing that. We're going to pick back up in James chapter 3 today. I don't have any particular announcements, I think, at the moment, maybe later for the next service, but for the worship. But let's go ahead and start with a prayer real quick, and then we'll get back into chapter 3. Let's pray. Lord God, you're so good to us. We're grateful for each and every day. We're grateful to be here. We're grateful to be gathered together, Lord. Your just mercy and grace is abundant. We're thankful for your love, and we're thankful for having each day that we get to have together. Lord, we are grateful to be able to gather here this morning to study your word, to look at more of what your word has to tell us and how we are to live as Christians and be doers of your word, not just hearers only. I do pray that you will be with those who are ill and sick, who are recovering, and be with those who need your love and encouragement and comfort, Lord. Be with us as we seek to set the example for Christian living and how to be a Christian, Lord, as we seek to teach others and those around us to share the gospel. Thank you so much for our families, our friends, and our relationships. We're grateful to have each other in this church family especially, to be able to encourage one another, to be here, to have fellowship. We look forward to the potluck today and being able to spend time together. We do pray that most importantly our worship is pleasing to you today, according to your word and in accordance with your truth. Be with our country and all the different advancements that have happened in political matters and overseas and battles and wars, and just be with the leaders, Lord. Help them make good choices. Again, be with us as we walk the walk every day. It's in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, we're back in chapter 3. Make sure my phone doesn't go off here. So it's been a minute. So just to recap, right? We've been going through the book of James. Been talking about a lot of different practical applications of things here. Of course, in chapter 1, we talk about temptation. We talk about count it all joy when we face various trials, right? Which kind of been like the theme throughout this whole study. Chapter 2, talking about faith without works, talking about partiality, right? Not having partiality. God is not a respecter of persons. So we shouldn't either. We shouldn't let those biases hinder us from sharing the gospel with people. And then faith without works is dead. We must have the works. We must live it. We must do the thing. We cannot just say that I'm a Christian. We have to show it. We have to live that out. Because if we just say it but then don't do anything about it, then our faith is dead, right? It's not worth anything. And then getting into chapter 3, one of the ways in which we practice that and doing that is how we treat our tongue, how we handle the tongue. Of course, acknowledging that the tongue is challenging to control. No man can tame it. If he does, then he must be perfect, which is interesting. So acknowledging that all of us struggle with the tongue. We all have challenges. I know I do. Right? We talked about some examples of that a couple weeks ago. So then we're going to pick up. We left off in about verse 7, but just for the sake of context and recapping, we'll start in verse 1 of chapter 3. My brethren, let not many of you become teachers, knowing that we shall receive a stricter judgment. For we all stumble in many things. If anyone does not stumble in word, he is a perfect man, able also to bridle the whole body. Indeed, we put bits in horses' mouths, that they may obey us, and we turn their whole body. Look also at ships. Although they are so large and are driven by fierce winds, they are turned by a very small rudder wherever the pilot desires. Even so, the tongue is a little member and boasts great things. See how great a forest a little fire kindles. And the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. The tongue is so set among our members that it defiles the whole body and sets on fire the course of nature, and it is set on fire by hell. For every kind of beast, bird, reptile, and creature of the sea is tamed and has been tamed by mankind. But no man can tame the tongue. It is an unruly evil, full of deadly poison. Think about that. Every kind of creature has been tamed by mankind. Ever been to the circus? Lion tamers? All those crazy, ferocious, the zoo? And they got control over I love tigers. I think tigers are one of the most beautiful creatures. They're incredibly dangerous and ferocious. They're different because like lions, they'll bellow and roar and stuff like that. Tigers are quiet. And they sneak through, like, oh my God, I just love tigers. I think they're beautiful. Man can tame tigers. Man can still have control over the animals like that. In the beginning, God made it so. It's that man in Genesis 1, verse 28. God made it that man would have dominion over all the creatures of the earth. We are made in God's image, so we therefore have that power. But interesting enough, he says, man can tame all of these beasts. All the different kind of wild animals, bears even, lions, tigers, and bears, oh my. We can tame all of them. But verse 8, no man can tame the tongue. It is an unruly evil, that word there, that original Greek, meaning unstrained, full of deadly poison, says. Wow. I think of the first time when we were growing up in Connecticut, and my dad had put out some traps around the house of rat poison. And I remember him telling me and my brother, do not go anywhere near that stuff, because you touch that stuff, it's going to get you. That's going to be real bad. The tongue is full of deadly poison. Of course, we talked about this last time, and talking about how great a forest a little fire kindles, how powerful the tongue can be, how if even one word can burn everything to the ground. Relationships, emotions, values, connections with people. I have to be very careful a lot of times thinking about how I say things, the way that I say them, especially with the kids. I don't want to crush their entire little spirit. But, of course, they need to be corrected at the same time. There's a balance there, right? So I never want to be, just sound mean or anything like that, but also we need to be serious. It's tough. It's tough. I love the fact that that's what this passage is acknowledging. Everybody struggles with this. You'd have to be perfect not to, right? But that doesn't make it any less important for us to still do something about it. Not to give up and say, well, I can't control it. I mentioned this example previously, but a coworker I had one time who was a manager, and she said, well, I just don't have much of a filter. Maybe you should get one, Not that that doesn't make it okay, just excuse, or whatever, and we'll talk about some of that mindset in our first lesson this morning, our sermon this morning, about how we take these flaws that we have, and people in the world tend to make it seem like that's okay. It's great to, you have those flaws. That makes you unique. You're different because of your issue. No, we need to do something about them, right? It's not that we should just ignore the fact. Yes, it is challenging, but that doesn't mean we just give up, right? Because it's full of deadly poison. Why would you want to spread that around like it's nothing? Act like that's okay. We don't want to do that. Verse 9. With it we bless our God and Father, and with it we curse men who have been made in the similitude of God. Out of the same mouth proceed blessing and cursing. My brethren, these things ought not to be so. Does a spring send forth fresh water and bitter from the same opening? Can a fig tree, my brethren, bear olives, or a grapevine bear figs? Thus no spring yields both salt water and fresh. I love that where he says, it ought not to be so. It's not okay. As I was just saying, it's not okay. Blessing and cursing coming from the same mouth. Which, by the way, I think he makes that an interesting point. By the way, we curse men who were made in the similitude of God. We were made in his image. We are reminded to value people because we are made in the image of the Lord. All men are made that way. But yet we curse men and we bless God from the same mouth. He says that it should not be that way. But yet it is. I would be absolutely amiss to go through this chapter and not bring up social media. Because I don't know what it is. I've said this before and I'm going to say it again. I don't know what it is about being behind a screen that makes so many people feel like they should say things they wouldn't normally say. I don't know where that comes from. I don't understand it. I don't post a lot on social media. I look at other people's posts, or Rebecca will share other people's posts with me, but we don't really post a whole lot. Me and her don't really post much ourselves. But sometimes, like yesterday, there's this thing, Jim Carrey won an award, a French art award, the Caesar Awards this past week, and he's been kind of out of the limelight for a while. And so when he shows up to this award show, he gave his entire acceptance speech 5 minutes long in French, which was interesting. And then he looked a little different. He looked like he maybe had some work done. His cheeks were a little extra puffy. And, of course, he's had longer hair for some time now and a beard and stuff like that. But for whatever reason, the internet decided this does not look like Jim Carrey. This must be an imposter. You have an entire just mass of threads, videos, articles. This doesn't look like Jim Carrey. It must be somebody else. I'm like, maybe the guy had work done. I don't know. But people clearly have nothing better to do than to have some whole conspiracy theory that maybe it wasn't him. And it becomes this whole conversation. And it's got news articles about it. Why do we say all these things on the internet? And I say this because it's not just people in the world, it's people in the church too. And I know this firsthand. Things that have, yes ma'am, you have a comment? Oh no, it's okay. It's okay. Cowards. Right. Right. We're not face to face, so it's like, well, I'll say, But then what does that say about your heart? If you're like, well, I'm going to say it now. I wouldn't say it to their face, but so it's like when you're in front of them, I guess you still have that inside you. Well, what is that about your heart? Should you even be having those thoughts, right? That's right. No, you're very right. I think you're right about that. The screen is like protective, because we're not looking at them face to face. Yes, Phil.
I was going to say that I'll go one step further than you. I don't even know how to comment on social media. I'm on no social media, neither is Elizabeth. We don't do anything like that. But I think that certainly, as far as the world is concerned, they're lost anyway.
Yeah.
The church is actually taking some body blows based on comments that I've heard on social media.
Mm-hmm.
People that make. I wouldn't even know where to find them. So I don't know what different people said.
Yeah.
I've heard comments that this particular member of the church said this on social media.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of shocked. I say, that's not within the character of that person typically, and it's certainly not within the character of a Christian to do anything, making comments like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the devil is created, or is a big fan, obviously, of all social media, the internet,
Yes.
and everything else. I mean,
Yes.
it amazed me this last week when we were out of town. We went to a couple of restaurants, and I looked around, and everybody was looking at their
Just,
away from the phone.
yeah,
Without being able to look at it constantly and look at it. And the devil's face is on the other side of that, looking right at you. And, so.
any
Social
opportunities.
media definitely,
Yes,
hurt the church in a lot of ways. Because like I said, I've heard comments that people have made. I think these comments, these actions that they have taken are out there for all eternity.
that's right.
I don't know how, I don't know
That's
if
right.
it's possible that you can erase any of the stuff that's ever said.
No.
Just, whatever. But, it's too bad.
Yeah, yeah, yes, ma'am.
Even if you don't make a comment when you're watching this stuff, when I got a new phone, opening up and hey, what in the
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
is this?
yeah,
I click, that's all. But some, we may not say anything, but we're taker of it if we're watching
yeah.
what we say.
You're involved in that discussion still, yeah. Go ahead, yeah.
Don't regulate this just as social media. Because
That's right.
50 years, over the last 15, maybe 20 years, our society has drifted back to where this stuff is accepted.
That's right.
The congresswoman at the presidential speech the other day had a button on her shirt that said the actual F word, ICE.
Wow, yeah, yeah,
Open in Congress.
yeah.
I haven't heard anything on the media about what this button said. How is that accepted?
And that's become commonplace. That's become, I don't know, I don't pay nearly as much attention to the award stuff as I used to, but the Grammys was full of that. That word with ICE and everything. There were multiple Grammy winners this year who their entire speech was just to say that and then step down. I was blown away. More than once this happened. And I'm just like, what? That's their entire acceptance speech, is just to make that political statement with that curse word and then sit down. I don't understand. Not even, thank you guys. I mean, I don't care that it's short, but you're going to just say something like that so flippantly? And they get applauded. They get standing ovations for this. I don't get it. But you're exactly right. Just the lack of, I remember talking to Bruce Hatcher about just the lack of shame. Just saying this stuff so flippantly and openly and expecting applause, and usually they are applauded, there's no shame anymore. Yeah, absolutely, the devil's clapping. Yes. That's right. Yeah. Judgment Day, man. Yes, ma'am.
Whether you say it or being associated like that, so you can't go out there drown somebody in the dirt, it's going to get some on you.
That's right.
Keep hanging, I had found myself like, what in the next heavens did I start doing? Around people, and all of a sudden, like you said, it's like, I've been around people that you say you're a Christian and they flip a word, I'm like, my goodness. Here it goes. I'm like, Lord, forgive me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I like that. That analogy of you hang around people in the dirt, you're gonna get some on you. I like that. That's true. Brady?
When I was in service back in the 70s, language was everywhere. Foul language,
Yep.
cultural language, whatever
Yep.
you want to call it. People just talk. It's normal routine in your life. It wasn't mine for ages until I became Christian. It took me months to get over it. But most people, they see nothing wrong with the language and
Yeah.
tearing people down and stuff like that. And there's so much hate for the president right now. It's unbelievable. Just the stuff I've seen on the news and
Yeah.
on TV. People just how bold some people are. And this person gets that person and this hates it.
Yeah.
That's the type of world we're in. People just say stuff.
Yeah.
Not the nice thing, but the thing with the internet is like any tool. Money, hammers, tools. They can be used for good. They can be used for bad.
That's right.
Same thing.
That's right.
Nice thing about sometimes like the Facebook thing is like sometimes I get posts from my family that live across the country. See what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where I come at, new technology comes out, well, it's neat, it's cool,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
people will twist it
Yeah.
their way.
Yeah. Well, let us not ever, be deceived in thinking that what we say online or what comes up on the internet isn't the same thing as saying it out loud. Because, I mean, nowadays, on the news, when they're sharing, comments from somebody, they don't even have the person come on anymore. They just post up a screenshot of a tweet. They say, well, this is what they said. And then they put that up to get somebody's opinion on it, right? That's all. I mean, Brother Phil mentioned about not being able to delete the stuff. You got people, this whole cancel culture of people pulling it. Well, 10 years ago, they said this. And they pull it out. Somebody digs it up out of somewhere. It's out there forever. And they say, well, they said this, and they show this post. It is what we're saying, I have members of my own family that have argued and decided not to talk to each other because of an argument that happened over social media. A post that one of them made, and then the other one gets upset about it, and then they bring that conversation to a phone call, and they start arguing about it, and then they don't talk for years. Thankfully, they're starting to talk a bit more now, which is good. But that was years ago. All because of social media. And it's not, I don't say social media as if, like Barry said, it's a tool. It's not the tool's problem, it's how we use it. Amazing that we can be in a time of our society where we are more connected than ever as far as the tools that we have, but yet we feel more disconnected in our relationships than ever. Isn't that interesting? Yes. Mm-hmm. That's right. Yes, very desensitized.
We see it every day, we hear it every day. Whatever word you want to come up with,
That's right.
come up with in a matter of seconds.
Absolutely.
And the sad thing about it, though, we're so desensitized, but yet if you were to say something to a member of the church about something they posted, we would be highly sensitized and highly offended.
Absolutely. That's right. That's right.
That's the sad part of it.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
We are supposed
Mm-hmm.
to listen to each other. We're supposed to bear one another's burdens.
Absolutely.
We also have to call it out when it's wrong.
Yeah, we do need to call it out. And something needs to be said, because it's not censored, especially. And that's one of the things that gets me, too, is that I wish there was some sort of feature on, like, YouTube videos that would flag, hey, this has, mature language or something in it. But they don't do that. And I work for a video game company, and so I'm looking at videos sometimes to see what the gamers are saying about the game and updates that we have and stuff like that. And they're just throwing words around in their commentaries of the game. And I'm like, I can't watch this. But there's nothing to flag that. There's nothing that says, hey, this video has this, so you're exactly right. The censorship has gone down, and the level of desensitivity to where we just get used to it goes up. And that's a problem. Getting to where we're not fazed by it anymore. As I remember, and I was going to mention this in our sermon this morning, the example of a friend in high school who once said, well, that doesn't really faze me anymore. And I was like, that's not good. That's not okay. It should bother you to hear those words. Every time it's like, feel like something's hitting you every time, instead of just being like, oh, yeah. No. Like, yeah.
For instance, paper, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But, this year's football, college football championship, last year, Ohio State, I think. Anyway, the quarterback was a devout Christian. And he would always say, I thank God for being saved and that. And they had a big stand up there where they were celebrating, and he wasn't allowed to, because they thought he was going to say something about God.
Mm.
That's how the censorship is kind of shifted.
Oh, yes.
Because really, in truth, and I hate to say this, but the socialists
good morals. That's what it's about. Yeah. And that's what we're taking away, is that sense of morality, right? Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, absolutely. Don't take that back. No, that's right. That's right. Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Well, for some reason, making those posts is almost like we act like we're safer that way, when in fact it's more widespread than if we did just say it to one person. You know, it's for all the whole internet to see now, versus, you know, because we see it on the screen and then we walk away from the screen and it's like, oh yeah, you know, it's like it's just gone. No, it's not gone. It's out there for everybody to see. And I don't know, it's fascinating to me, that whole, just how we feel about it versus the reality of it. And, you know, so like there's the congregation that I was in as a teenager growing up. I commend one of the elders for doing a lesson over there on the tongue, and he specifically shifted it to where he was pointing at the congregation, telling them that they as a whole, including him, needed to do better, because he called out a specific instance where a lady had come to him saying that she was a member of the congregation and her daughter was struggling with her faith and not attending. She was attending some sort of denominational community church and stuff like that. And her mother kept trying to push her to come back, and she pointed to certain posts on Facebook by members, including deacons, of that congregation. She said, why should I come back when these people are acting this way? They're no better than me. And it's not that the people are better. Obviously, we come because I always tell people, I fear the Lord more than I do man. Man's going to make mistakes, but I fear the Lord greater. I want to make sure I do what he wants, and that's why I attend. But, you know, I don't know. I think that it always hits home for me to have that example of, even in the church, we are setting an example with what we're doing online, and people see it. And they say, why do I need to go worship with those people? Why do I need to be in that congregation? Why do I need to be with that church? It's no different than the one I'm in now. No better, right? Yes, Barry.
One of the biggest things is control your emotions.
Yes.
A lot of people don't do that. If somebody says, "Oh, I don't like that color," or whatever, you know, then the other person's gonna get offended.
Yeah.
Or even, it's like now that, you know, the they them is like
Oh,
a
man.
situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, science and, you know, God made man and woman.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's no other
Absolutely.
gender that exists. But people get offended by emotions instead of thinking logically, well, how is this even possible? You know, and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's like, you know, oh, why can't you be a 17-year-old anymore?
Mm-hmm.
You're not, you're past that age already.
Yeah.
So that's the logic, that's the science. Like, it's impossible to be back, be a
That's
child
right.
again.
That's
You
right.
cannot go from man to woman, woman to man. You can't change DNA.
That's right.
How God has made things. But everybody's based on emotions instead of logic. Like, okay, this person said this. I'm not even going to get into that because I know this person doesn't care.
Yeah.
They're all about emotion. It's like, I feel this, I feel that.
Mm-hmm.
When somebody's in that situation, no matter what type of, you know, logical, sound advice or truth you give them, they're not going to listen anyway.
Yeah.
In most cases.
Yeah.
So that's where, as Christians, you got to look at, okay, this person said this. Okay, well, you know, it's just, I got to let it go because I know they're not in the mood to listen.
Yeah.
You know.
There's a balance to be struck for sure, because we should say something and we should call it out, definitely. But at the same time, it can be hard to know sometimes about when to kick the dust off your feet. Because sometimes you do, because you get to that point to where, okay, look, we've talked about this and you're still going at it. Well, obviously, like you said, they're not going to hear it. But it can be hard, to figure that out as far as when to quit. Because sometimes if you push it too far, then you end up pushing them further away, right? Because they're just going to argue the whole time. Yes, Jeremy.
Facebook posted on that. I look back and I think of back in the 80s, Jerry Farwell, he was a religious leader. He had put an article in a magazine called Playgirl, which is pornography magazine. So us talking about what's being said on Facebook is like, why are you looking at Playgirl?
Yeah.
You should look at Facebook in the first place.
Right.
If I'm quoting what something said at hell.com,
Yeah, yeah.
and if the tree falls on the forest and no one's around to hear it, they're making noise.
Right, right.
If someone said a bad word on the internet and I didn't see it, then they wouldn't see it. It doesn't affect me.
Interesting.
I do know one thing with Facebook isn't the playground. The problem is my Bible says sorcerers are not inherit the kingdom of heaven. Electricity is sorcery. I'm sorry. I like science. I like chemistry. I like that. But my computer is sorcery. Flat out. These lights are sorcery. I should see at night looking like a moon because Genesis 1 tells me that's what he made it. Not, we shouldn't be arguing about which light bulbs to use. We shouldn't have electricity. It's only been around for 120 years. It's the new kid on the block. We don't need it.
120 years. Wow, I didn't know that.
Fellowship. Attendance would double. You couldn't watch it from home.
Yeah, well, I will agree that streaming has been one of those tools, not one of those good or bad things. Yeah, it's an interesting balance with the technology. Yeah, I don't know, just being, like I said, we have the ability to be more connected than ever, and yet we seem to be more just like, there are good and bad things about streaming, the streaming the service. That's how Rebecca and I found this congregation, was we were able to listen to one of Bruce's lessons, and I was sold. I said, we need to go over there, But then you have the people who never came back from COVID because they just got used to streaming at home, and they still do, that kind of thing. But all tying back to the main point of what we say, and remembering that no matter where it is, online, in person, you never know who's going to see it, who's listening, who's paying attention, who's going to use that later, that kind of thing. And you just never know. You just never really think about the impact or the mark that you're making and the perception other people have of you. You just never know what to expect. It's amazing to me the things that will come out of our children's mouths sometimes. And I'm like, where did you hear that? Sometimes good and bad. Sometimes it's like, wow, okay. Sometimes it's like, my goodness, where did you hear that? They must have got it from somewhere. And then, of course, the first thing I do is a self-evaluation. Have I ever said something like that? Making sure it wasn't me. But because they're listening, they soak it all in, So you just being mindful of those things is always so extremely important. That was the first bell. We can wrap this up real quick here, where he says in verse 10, out of the same mouth proceed blessing and cursing. My brethren, these things ought not to be so. Verse 11, does a spring send forth fresh water and bitter from the same opening? It does not. Freshwater springs are fresh water. They don't have salt water. Go to the ocean for salt water. Verse 12, can a fig tree, my brethren, bear olives, or a grapevine bear figs? A tree bears its own fruit. Right? Jesus uses that analogy as well. We don't see, orange trees making something that's not oranges, right? Thus, no spring yields both salt water and fresh. I love that analogy for our mouth. Why would our mouths be pouring forth such negativity, such hate, such harmful speech? And it's not even that we have to be posting curse words specifically. It's not even that we have to be posting very brash or whatever. Sometimes it's just what we say in regards to what somebody else said. That can just poke the bear, Sometimes that's all it takes. Sometimes the question is it worth? Look, if we want to address it, let's address it directly and privately, not in the comments section for everybody to see. Let's pull them aside and say, hey, I saw that. Like, are you okay? Should we, I wasn't sure what that was supposed to mean. Like, is there something going on? Versus, well, I don't think you should be, and then everybody chimes in on it. Like you said, where everybody swooped in and was like, There's a certain way I think that can be helpful to handle those kinds of things. And then, like Barry said, maybe there are some times where you have been at it with that person multiple times and they're still doing it. Well, then, we need to figure out when to kick the dust off our feet, but also we need to figure out how to address it. There's such a difficult balance, and that's exactly what this passage is saying. It is hard to figure this out, and we're going to mess it up from time to time, but that doesn't mean we quit. I think that's the main point here. It's untamable, but yet it's so incredibly important because of how impactful and how dangerous it can be, the tongue. Any other comments or thoughts? We've got 2 minutes. Yes, Maury.
I just want to say that when I was growing up in Florence, Alabama, at church, the wife of one of the elders was a very nice lady, Lily Lewis. And I remember Mom telling me, I guess she told my sisters too, but how Ms. Lewis taught the ladies' Bible class. But she was just a very nice lady, a very good example. Mom always told me that her favorite verse in the Bible is 1 Peter 3:10, for he that will love life and see good days, let him bring his tongue from evil, and his lips that they speak no guile, and then letting seek peace and do it, things like that.
Yeah.
And that was her. She was just a very calm, peaceful lady, and didn't seem to have any enemies.
Mm.
A very good leader. A lot of I think, a lot of ladies I think look to her simply because of her personality, her attitude, and I guess what she didn't say. Because she certainly didn't seem to have any anger or anything. And it's interesting too because your children were also very nice and caring, but they really learned from her. So it's always, every time I hear that verse, I think of her.
Good example. Good example of somebody, carrying that out. Like, we can have that filter. We can be kind. We can choose kind words. Always, teaching the kids, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say it, If you got something difficult to bring up, you can talk to me or your mom about it, but we don't need to just be saying flippant, mean things, just, what? Well, no, we don't need to be doing that. You can control that, Appreciate the great discussion today, everybody. Very good. Love all the comments. We'll pick up in verse 13 next time. We're going to shift gears a little bit. It's going to go away from the tongue and go into a different subject. Appreciate everybody's participation this morning. It's very good.